Hi, I'm Chuck Sawyer, and I was president of the club in 2018-2019.
Those years were, lots was going on in our country. Tell us about the environment that you started as president.
Well, it wasn't that long ago, so we probably all remember. But back to 2018-2019, that was the midterm elections. The Democrats had just taken back over Congress. There was Brett Kavanaugh had his Supreme Court, nomination going through. There was a lot of angst. There was a lot of things going on. There was a Mueller investigation, the Pound Me Too. And, going through that, the thing that was terrific for me was Rotary was a respite to all that. We don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion. And it's amazing how people can get along if you don't talk about those two things.
It's terrific.
But, for the club side of you, we were coming off of President Cliff had a terrific year. We did this thing, March Madness, that we brought in 34 new members. It was a big all-time high. And I think that was a +8 that we did for the year in terms of members. But that was, there was that enthusiasm around that for the year and whatnot.
What were some of the other issues, though, that you were facing? You must have had some goals or things you wanted to fix or do better.
Yeah, I had 4 overall goals. We all had goals, and you had details as well. But, on those goals, at the very top of it was growth. And the growth side of it was, how do you continue growth? And really, it was looking about it from a systematic kind of way. It was a little unique that I came, into the presidency after being the car show chair before that. And I think that might be the first time that was. But the systems in the car show were terrific. And if you look at those issues, though, and you come in and you say, how do you systematically grow the club? You have to look not only at bringing in members, but also at retention. And I think that that's something that we really worked at as well. I think that the other things that were kind of key were diversity. We really were working on diversity, and how do you grow diversity in the club was a big issue as well. And I think it's always important when you talk about growth, though, and this is a real issue, it's not growth just for growth's sake. I mean, we didn't want to grow just to be a bigger club. It wasn't like we're chasing 300 members again. But the point is, I think we're growing because we needed the members to do the things we wanted to do in town. Because of the car show, we needed more new members coming in. Because of you're either kind of growing or dying as a club. And I think that was an important thing, that we were bringing in members and good members, but I think growth is important for the club.
Okay. And also, when you grow, you can get some diversity along with it.
You can, if you're smart about it.
Right.
And I think we really tried to do that.
But Chuck, you had a rich experience in business before you became president. And when you look back at what you gained from being president, what did you gain in addition to what you already knew from running Cartridge World and all the other businesses that you were associated with? How would you assess that?
I think there are some differences. I mean, one, there's just the everyday stuff, and I'm sure people say this as well, of how you run a meeting and how you get in front of that many people and make things work. But I think more importantly, if you come back to what I learned, I took what I learned from being car show chair. And we had great systems. You look at what John put together and what Arnie did in creating the car show. There are great systems on that side. And so what I learned is, how can I apply some of those systems that you might use in a business as well to the club? How can we pull some things that we've done from the car show into the club itself? And then from that, is there a way that we can create some systematic change? The second thing is, in business, you have a corporate structure. Rotary is a volunteer organization, and things are different. So how do you kind of create structure and work in a volunteer organization? I think that was a key thing as well for me.
You accomplished a lot during your year, Chuck. And I'd like to know, looking back now, what are you most proud of? What are the 3 or 4 things that you think that I did it? I was very happy with that.
Yeah.
What were some of those?
Well, I think coming from business, there's numbers, right? So you always kind of look at numbers a bit. Right. And so, we had put in a goal that we wanted to be a +10, a couple people up from the previous year. And we were successful. We actually were a +12, which was a big number in terms of members. We grew to 254 members. So we got back over 250 after we've been declining for a number of years. And so that was a great thing. And when you think about that, how do you do that? Well, part of it is bringing in new members, and we had great kind of board. Margaret Higgins was terrific working with us and bringing in new members. But then you have to also work on retention. And that, I think, is one of the things that I'm most excited about. I mean, the retention was based on member engagement. How do you engage members to be more active in the club? And there's a whole range of things that we can do with that. And actually, Bob, you were a big part of that for our member retention side. And it started with, I think, a conversation you and I had that I would throw out a line when I was talking about people's birthdays and say something to the effect of, well, you know, here's their background, but something you might not know about Bob Schaff. And
that phrase became famous in our club.
It was good, but the thought is it caught people's attention. And then you took it and ran with it and took it to a whole different level with high profiles. So the idea that, you know, in a big club, how do you create community? Especially when you get to a meeting, and you go to a meeting and literally you have 10 to 12 minutes of fellowship before the meeting starts. And you're sitting at a table with 10 people, right? And so how do you connect to people? And so the thought was you have to connect to them not only in the meeting, but in the socials, in the car show, working and doing, you know, fellowship organizations, hiking clubs. You know, we had a beer drinking club, we have a wine fellowship. We had different ways to get people to interact because it's that interaction that's the glue that holds organizations together. And so that engagement was really important. And if we go to the numbers, we said, hey, we want to go from typically losing 10% of our members to losing 8%. Well, we beat that and we only lost 6% of the members. So half of our growth of the plus 12, 6 of it came from increasing the members, but 6 of it came from losing less members. So I think that's something that is good and important and part of a system. And we worked on that from everything, from things like the high profiles, which now what's our number on high profiles? What are we up to?
We're just at 80%.
We're at 80%, which is amazing because I looked back then and we were looking, we've got 30% of the membership that had done it, right? But beyond that, we worked on member ambassadors. So when somebody comes in, how do you bring members in? That somebody meets them and kind of follows them through. We worked on the STAR committee and continuing to refine that. We worked on mentoring and updating mentoring. But basically, trying to encourage that process of new members coming in, increasing the number of those people connecting.
Centennial's got started. The planning for Centennial got started during your year also.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other things that we could talk about. So Centennial, certainly, you know, Jim Lubinsky got going, and what was the part that happened on that was that we picked our beneficiary, JTED. So there's a whole grant side of it and all the rest. But that was set into motion all the way back in 2018, 2019, of who our beneficiary is and what we're doing with that. In addition to that, we had a great car show. So Bruce Jacobs, who is our now president-elect, and will he be the second or the third? Second person who's now gone from car show to club,
right,
which is actually something that's important. You know, I really do think, and I mentioned it already, the work that John and Arnie did and the whole committee that got the car show going. It's something unique we have as a club. As a president, you get to go, every other year we go to this thing called the Large Club Conference, which are clubs that are typically 225 or 250 members or more in the country. And when I went to that, it was in Nashville. It was more meaningful for me than certainly my president-elect training in terms of what was going on, because those are other big clubs that are facing the same challenges that we have at the Rotary Club of Tucson. And what was interesting is how few of those organizations had something like the car show and how much they wanted it, because it's a great way to drive camaraderie. Not only camaraderie, but fundraise and camaraderie. Other people's money and putting it together. It's a structure that creates a glue in the club. And that car show mentality, I think, is really important, that we don't lose track of that, because it does so many things for us, and that other big Rotary clubs, if they don't have that, and some had some other really good things, but it's something unique, and we need to think about that. So back to Bruce Jacobs, he did a great job with it. We raised $175,000, which was a great number, and I don't know, maybe I was a little biased, but I heard that it was one of the smoothest car shows that we ever had. You couldn't get any complaints or things happening on the mic all day long. Even Marianne Freitas, mom, was happy. She said, I kept looking for problems, but there was nothing to solve. So, and if people are listening to this down the line, they'll say, what do you mean, mom? Well, Marianne, kind of founding team of the car show as well. We call her mom, and everybody listens to mom, so it's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great list of things you're proud of. How about relationships with the district and the region and other Rotary clubs? Yeah,
we had a couple things that we did. One of my goals, the third goal, was trying to look at Rotary in Tucson a little bit. There was some work that I had done with two other clubs, with Rincon and with Catalina, that we said, hey, maybe we can do some stuff together. And from that, there became 3 different initiatives that we worked on. One was a membership thing that we tried to do to get new members in. It didn't work quite as well as I would have hoped, but it was an initiative to do that. Another was a common kind of basically work project board that was online that allowed you to see what other clubs were doing, and that was out there. And then there was a third initiative that we tried to do with the TUSD that is working on. And so found out that both it's challenging to do that, but I think that there's merit in looking a little broader, and especially in these times that we're in right now in COVID, we have to be more creative. Maybe there's something to look at there.
Well, you've mentioned to me in our conversations that there were a lot of positives, but there were also some sad times. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, I don't, sad's a different word, so challenging or embarrassing is one, and then sad is another. Sad would be, that we had 4 terrific members who passed away during my years. So Joe Nevin, who just, we called him the mentor's mentor, a great, great Rotarian. We had Yvonne Irvin, who had been a member of the club, and we lost her as well. We also had Tom Andrews, who I knew really well from hiking. He was the one who was the glue that put together our hiking group that got us down to the Grand Canyon for the first time. And we've done the Grand Canyon now 4 times as a fellowship in the last 7 years. And last, but certainly not least, is Sky Leininger, who died right at the end of the year. And past President Sky, what a terrific member of our club. And, I think the thought on that is, Bob, I think you actually had a saying. So this is fun that I get to talk to you, because I think you were the one who coined that we have a remarkable Rotary club. I think that went back to your year, if I'm not mistaken. And I borrowed that, and I used that in my year, a remarkable Rotary club as well. But I think that the remarkable Rotary club, we're not remarkable just because of the things we do and what we get done. I think we're a remarkable Rotary club because we have remarkable members. So if you talk about losing a Sky Leininger, you talk about losing a Tom Andrews, you talk about losing a Joe Nevin or Yvonne, you've lost part of the community, but that community is what makes us so good as a Rotary club and makes us truly remarkable.
Okay, next topic is things that happened during your year that were most inspiring, that charged you up, and maybe something thrown in there was embarrassing a little bit. You got some of those? I can think of a few.
I think we all have some of those. Embarrassing. It wasn't my first meeting. The first meeting was the one that we did on Toronto and whatnot. But the second meeting of the year, we had Jonathan Rothschild. So we had the mayor come in. And in that meeting, when he came in, we had in the previous year, through Cliff's year, some problems with the audiovisual with at the DoubleTree. They were redoing parts of the room, all the rest of it. And the mics had dropped once or twice. So that day, I was there early. I was there with the crew that was working on the mics and stuff, making sure everything was working. And, we got the mayor, and so my first official speaker other than me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going up there, and he gets into his talk about 2 or 3 minutes, and the mic goes dead. I'm like, Are you kidding me?
After all your
right, after
preparation.
after all that stuff, no way. And so I real quick, I go, grab the other mic. And we get the other mic, and that one works for about another minute and a half. And that goes dead. Now Jonathan is looking at me like, what kind of place are you running here, right? Exactly. So I look at the guy who works with the AV stuff, not in our club, it's the company, Steve. And I said, Steve, what? He goes, I'll run a hardwired mic over. So he's scrambling, he goes over, he grabs this cord, he runs in front of the thing. We put this, it's a wired mic, right? No wireless, anything, right in front of Jonathan. He talks for 30 seconds and it goes dead again. I'm like, are you kidding me? So Jonathan, I said, do you want, he goes, nope. He's like, I don't want any more mics. He goes, and he just stood up and he talked louder and projected and with some passion. And it's funny, many people in the club know Fletcher McCusker, who's, very well known to everybody here from Rio Nuevo and everything. And Fletcher was there in the audience as well. And after the meeting, he said, I think that might be the best I've ever seen Jonathan talk, because he had to really put some emotion into it and throw his room. We had a full room. We had 200 people to the back of the room. So, he really had to project out, and it was good. It's fun. But from that lemon, we did make a little bit of lemonade, which was, and you'll remember this because you played a part in this as well, which is fun. I took out my phone and recorded his speech because I said, nobody's going to see this. We're not going to be able to have it. So I put a recording of it. I think maybe Dave Gallagher in his year might have taped one of the things and we put it up on the website. I knew that in the back of my mind. I said, well, why don't we tape that? So we taped it.
Before the mics went bad?
When the mics went bad. From the time they went bad, I turned it on. And I said, we'll go ahead and type it. So it was a response to it to say, how can we get out what he's saying to other people? So we were able to take that. We were able to post it on the website and put it up. But also from that, we really started that idea that we taped most of our speakers. And we talked about the idea you can do a makeup by just listening to our speaker instead of any of the makeups we don't are as important now as they were then. But you didn't have to go to the Rotary site to do a makeup or go to a meeting. You could just say, hey, I listened to the speaker, and that was it. And I think, it probably was a little bit of an on-ramp to Bob and where he went with taking it all, virtual. And it ran way, way further than that. But we made a little bit of lemonade out of that lemon, and that was good.
That's great. What were some of your favorite programs, Chuck?
We had some really good programs. In addition to the mayor, we had Chuck Huckleberry came in, which was good. We had Ted Maxwell from Arizona, Southern Arizona Leadership. We got in Kevin Sumlin, which was he was early on in his tenure at that point. It was good to get in Kevin Sumlin, but who I really enjoyed was Adia Barnes. And there was something that happened in that meeting with Adia Barnes that there was just a connection to our club that led to a whole host more of our members going to the women's basketball games. And just kind of this thing that continues. And now we've had Adia back every year, and she's just done such a phenomenal job and such a passionate person that she's great at that for sure.
Well, you've had quite a year, and you learned a lot, and you did a lot for our club. Take some of those experiences, Chuck, now, and let me give you the situation. Let's say we had a member of our club who went through the vetting that our club does to pick the next incoming president, and that person, male or female, comes up to you and says, Chuck, you had some experiences. What can you teach me? What can you help me with to be a good club president? What would you say to an incoming club president?
I'd say a couple things. One is to go back to past presidents. I think past presidents are really generous with their time, and I probably talked to a dozen or more past presidents before I started into my term to just see what it was in their eyes and what the club was, and get their feeling of what was working and what wasn't working in the club. There's so many people that you can turn to get good advice from. Past presidents is a very important part. The second would be that, and this is probably almost sounds a little bit trite, but just be yourself. Because when you're in front of a microphone and you've got a big group of people like that, every meeting, you just got to be kind of who you are. and that will come across. And that genuineness of you coming across will mean more to the members than trying to figure out, well, how do I do this or do that? It's just be yourself. Because then, and it's hard, because those first couple meetings, for anybody, I mean, even if you've spoken to big groups, you talk to 100 people in a room or 200 people, you have to learn how does that work? And by about, maybe a month, 3 weeks in, you start going, oh, okay, I got this. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot to balance, because, you're balancing not only all the programs, but 120 to 150 people's time, which is very valuable. So in that advice as well, learn to manage that process, be yourself, and be on time, because it's important. I'll just tell you, it's important. The third thing would be that you're going to have goals. So work on your goals beforehand, during your PETS training and all the rest, they'll get you working on that as well. But then work with your board, because you've got great members on your board, to look at their goals and make sure that they buy into them as well. So engage your board members early, get them into the goals, that it's not so much your goals, but the board's goals that are going forward. And the last part of that would be just know that there are remarkable people in the club. And whether it's Ken Tucker, who did a great job with programs for us, working with Ted Kirchhoff, whether it was Bob Schaff, who worked on retention, whether it was Bruce Jacobs, who worked on the car show, whether it was Margaret Higgins, who did the membership side. Trust your members to do great things, and you'll have a remarkable experience as a president.